Hi, Israel.
How's everything, Ross? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm fine, perfectly fine. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Well, Israel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule as editor-in-chief of Revolution for Mexico and Latin America. And joining me on the desert island. It's great to have you here.
No, thanks for having me. I know you have a busy schedule because, even though you are on your island, you have lots of things to do as editor for Revolution, for Rolex and Tudor, and many other things. So, you're the busy one, my friend.
Well, it's great to have you here, and thank you. So, we may be here for a while, and so I hope you've managed to pack some watches for your trip here that we can maybe have a chat about. But first things first, have you got a drink that you can have during our time together, Israel?
Well, actually, because of the time differences, you know how this works, even though it's a big island, it's like a continent rather, because we have different time zones. So yeah, I have something with me, so don't worry about it. I'm pretty well equipped for that.
Okay, great stuff. So let's get on with it then. Let's start with your first watch, and over to you, Israel.
Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't pack all my watches because when you travel, you tend to bring with you some of the favorite ones. You want to show it off, or you are proud of them. But I was lucky enough to have with me maybe I wouldn't call it a grail, but one of my favorite ones because of what it meant to me. First of all, I have my trusty Omega Speedmaster Professional Mark II from 1971. This was a watch that when I first saw it, I wasn't very much into watches. I like the watches. I started to understand about the watches. But what I like the most about this one is racing dial, the combination with the red and orange accents. And I found it quite interesting for an Omega at that time. Why such a peppy face for a watch, such a colorful face? So, because it was different for me, and that's the important thing. It was different and special for me. In time, I tried to look for one. I managed to get my hands in a couple of those, but even I hadn't the resources to purchase it, or maybe it was a watch that wasn't in the perfect condition, a reasonably good condition at all. But in time, I got a chance to grab this one, and the greatest part is that it was a black dial one, a normal Speedmaster, the black dial, but the dial was so it was ugly, it was damaged, it was rusted. So I thought, what if I transferred my 145.014 into a racing one? So I purchased all the pieces. The dial was scratched, so I also had to buy the dial, and I had to buy the crystal, and pretty much I overhauled the watch, and finally resulted this one. It's not an original. I have the original parts, of course, but this one I made it like I wanted to keep it for all time. We have to understand the part that we like watches. We like to collect watches because they talk to us in some way, not because we want to make business with them. It's part of a business, the watch industry. But these watches, especially the ones I have here, are pieces that I love because they talk to me. And that's the thing. When I kind of customize this one to my liking, respecting, of course, the history of the watch and the specific of the reference, I couldn't not do it. So I was happy to do it. The thing is, the most special part about this one is that this watch, I purchased it in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, because the following year, it was my first big salon, my first SIHH.
Okay.
So I used it at the time. I was very proud that the watch worked perfectly fine. But that very same year, 2014, you might remember, that Omega relaunched the Mark II Speedmaster, the tonal shape. And
yeah, I remember.
Relaunched it with three references, the one with the dials, sub-dials color with the colors of Olympic medals, the black one, and of course the racing one that is an automatic, that one has a date, but it was a happy coincidence to have this watch and then see it's new evolution, the new reference, and it was like, okay, it's kind of nice. It's funny. It's a funny happening. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, if this watch appreciated like 2%, I'm okay with it. I don't mind at all. But it was a nice thing to happen. I mean, we live in a world of coincidences. We have just to be aware of them.
I mean, let me just share the picture that you sent me of this watch. It's such a striking dial, isn't it, on this? And really, I spoke about this with somebody last week. The Speedmaster specialist, the Davidoff brothers, Roy, was on the island, and interestingly, he chose one of these racing dial Mark II Speedies, and they really are very much of the time, aren't they? Those dials, I guess, from my perspective, the Tudor home plate chronograph with the orange accents and the black and the grey, and these watches really were very much of that era, weren't they? I think, was the Mark II introduced in 1969, 1970?
Right.
Yeah, such a great looking watch. And the fact that you gave a tired watch a facelift, but you didn't just give it a facelift, you gave it a racing facelift, which is just brilliant.
Yeah, it wasn't that easy to get my hands in not an original dial, but an official new one from service, because there's nothing to hide here. All parts are replacements. But it was quite hard to get my hands on one of those because they are very scarce. So you have to be patient if you want to, to achieve your own goals. So in time, when you get stranded on an island, you have your own treasures, and you know that they will keep you company in a very nice fashion.
Yeah, and it's a great watch, and thank you for sharing that one with us.
No,
okay, so watch number 2. What else have you packed in your backpack for the trip?
Now, when you want to see yourself not as a watch connoisseur, because I mean it's part of the job. You have to be informed. You have to be aware of what's happening. You have to all have your own resources at hand in order to understand what's happening. But from time to time, you just say, "Heck, I want a very old watch, the oldest watch I can find that talks to me." And in this case, I was quite lucky. I first found this watch from an acquaintance who has a very keen eye for rarities. And this one immediately caught my eye and said, I must have it. And in time, we swapped watches. I gave him, if I am not mistaken, among other things, Zenith Defy from the 70s also. That was a nice watch, high frequency, but it wasn't, my cup of tea at all. But I managed to get my hands in this beauty, which is an Angelus 215 chronograph from 1941.
Wow.
So the thing about this watch is that I won't say in mint condition, because it's not that you can see it, and all our friends from the photos you're showing.
Yeah.
But it works like, I won't say like new, but it works. The pushers feel very, very nice. It keeps really good time. The dial, it's fading, but you still can see the original markings. The red and blue markings on the minute register. This scale markings, 3 minutes interleft, because of how the long distance phone calls were in the time that they were timed, and I mean you can still wear this watch easily. I have it in a generic NATO leather strap, but it was really nice because even though it's 35 millimeters, it was huge for the time. The starting of the Angelus 215 movement, which is historic, not that important, but it's an historic movement because it was used in the first prototypes of the Panerai Mare Nostrum in the mid-40s, something like that. So it's a historic movement. If they chose it for this, I mean, it was more than reasonable to use for that purpose. And I mean, it's a very fun watch because even though, I insist, it's a 35 millimeter case, it was really nice. And this watch, along with some other watches like Nomos, for instance, the original Tangente, which is 35 millimeters, made me realize that watches shouldn't be 42, 44, 48, because in the 90s, in the early 2000s, when you are like crazy about watches, you want the biggest, most loudest watch that you can see and be seen with. And that's why you turn to Panerais and you turn into big Breitlings. But you know what? The classic looking watches from a long time ago that are still very good looking, very functional, and most importantly, mean something. Mean that the people who developed them had something in mind, you know, the utility, the sturdiness. Watches that were made to be worn and used for a very long time. And this almost 80-year watch is proof of that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm going to share the picture. And I mean, personally, for a long time, I've been the biggest fan of sort of 34, 35, 36 mil vintage watches. And I think it's important to remember back in the 40s, this was the time of things like the Rolex Bubbleback and the small dress watches, where it was absolutely usual for a watch to be 31, 32 millimeters, maybe 33. So a 35 mil watch in the 40s was actually a big watch.
Yeah.
And I guess the second thing for me that's really interesting about this watch is, you know, the fact that over the past 5 years, steel chronographs from the 40s and 50s have become a serious piece of the landscape in terms of the collector's market.
Yeah, I agree totally, Russ. And I think a big part of it, besides there's the fact that there are lots of watches like this one, you know, the Minerva effect. I like to call it that way because of, you know, the reborn Minerva, thanks to Montblanc, and you know, histories about the caliber 1320 and all those watches that are pretty much like this one. But there were lots and lots of chronographs in the time, but they were like, because they're small, they're old, you cannot trust them. I mean, these things were made to last. I mean, these were made with love, with very very specific and mindful mindset of being tool watches, because at the end of the day, these watches were military watches for the most part, so they have to be made to last. And when you see this kind of watch and the Minerva ones, and you saw Sonnen Bajus and the like, that's why they're very well liked and sought after, because people appreciate what they offered at the time and what they can still offer to all of us.
Yeah, fabulous. What a good watch. A real classic that I think will be super cool in another 100 years' time. I think these watches never really come in and out of fashion. They just remain classic pieces, don't they?
No, indeed, I agree. And the thing is that when we're talking and seeing and feeling and wearing an 80-year-old watch, goodness, 80 years, man. I mean, it's a lifetime, more than a lifetime. So when you have it here and you think about the stories of the watch saw and with whom was with, and so many things. And that's a very nice part of this, because we all live in this time of very short attention spans. We all want to buy new trainers every 6 months, and we all want to change our phone every year and our computers every 4 to 5 years. When you see these things that last like for a lifetime, it kind of puts things into perspective. So it's really nice to open our minds, our eyes, our hearts to really see it and feel it. So that's the most important message I got with this watch. You know, the thing that it can last as long as you want it to.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for that. A real classic. So, watch number 3.
Well, I have to make a small parenthesis here. These are watches that are not like, you know, very well, very well made, but not that ready to spend a lifetime in an island. But what can I do? These were the watches I had with me. I have one example that will last for quite a while. But the third one, you know, is it's here with me. It's something that's quite special for me because it made me understand that, again, you have to open your eyes to all possibilities. This one is quite, I would say the quirky one. This one is very special because I like it make me understand about skeletonized watches. because a good skeletonized watch in and itself is watchmaking lessons, because you can see what's happening with your watch. You see how it works, how every piece is connected, all the wheels and the levers, and of course the beating of the balance wheel. In this case, this is a Claude Meylan lag skeleton. Claude Meylan is not that a well-known brand because it's very small, but they are established in the Jew Valley, right along, around the Jew Lake. And even though we're not talking about the size of magnitude of Breguet, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and Blancpain, and Audemars-Piguet, all neighbors of the Jew Valley, these independent brands, which are lots of them around the valley, and of course all around Switzerland, have this, I will use the word, I'm very sorry to you and all my friends, this savoir-faire of watchmaking. The feeling of making watches for the sake of making something that you care about, that you like. And this one, I mean, considering this started its life as a Unitas 6497, when you see this watch, it has nothing to do with other than, of course, the basic architecture, but it talks a lot about the caliber, the starting of the caliber, because you can do whatever you want with that caliber and transform it into a pretty much a shaped movement, because that movement in other Claude Meylan references is shaped into tonneau cases, either big or small. So it talks about the movement, the quality of the movement, and the artistry of the people behind the movement who are talented enough to transform the watch, a simple, robust, very trusty caliber such as the 6497, into pretty much a custom watch that looks so much different from anything else. And the second thing is that I don't know what's your take about skeletonized watches. You being a true expert about Rolex and Tudor, true connoisseur, I don't know. What do you think about skeletonized watches? And then I'll come back with an answer.
I think for me, it's. I think you've really kind of answered this question for me. I think it's being able to see what's gone into the making of the watch. I mean, I'm just going to I'm going to share a quick picture of it while I'm talking. And for me, this is a watch that I'll be honest with you, I wasn't that familiar with the name Claude Meylan before you sent the info through to me. So I did do some research on the website, and to, look at these watches and a company that are so passionate about the art of skeletonizing the movements, to me is something really cool. And yeah, from my original kind of interest in watches, very traditional, I guess, in some ways from the Rolex and Tudor point of view, whenever I get to see these watches that are so different, it really opens my mind to kind of that whole wider aspect of horology and what there is out there. And these watches are cool. I mean, really cool. And as you say, the shape of the cases and the way that they finish the movements and the kind of aesthetic of what's happening is cool. I really liked it when I saw it.
Right, and there's the other part. People like to fend up these watches because of the issue of seeing your ugly, hairy hand through the watch, because being so transparent, if you are a hairy dude like I am, at least in my arms, you start thinking, oh no, I'll be seeing my ugly hand and my ugly hairy backhand all the time. You know what? That's not true at all. Even though this watch has no treatment that you would see in a Corum or maybe in a Ardent Alson, which they had these mirrored finishings on the backside. Yeah. This one's just straight sapphire, full transparency, and you don't think about it because you don't see it. You start thinking about the contrast. You start looking like you're in love with the balance wheel being at these 2.5 hertz or 3, I can remember, and the contrast and the shape of the ridges, which in this case most of them are straight, which is a very specific way of finishing. Most skeletonized watches have these swirly finishings and curved shapes, but finishing them in a straight way is very, very difficult. And when you do it right, it looks very industrial looking, very modern, even though you're looking at a traditional hand-wound watch. So I won't say this is like a Breguet 5395 tradition tourbillon, but when I compared the basic straight shapes and acute angles of some parts of the watch, you see there's something about daring to finish a watch with straight shapes and acute angles that are so very demanding, because some points of a watch, they kind of absorb you at all, and it's much easier to find small flaws and defects in some watches when they absorb your attention. In this case, when you finish nicely your watches and you combine a very industrial, tough-looking aesthetic with the smarts and talents of the artistry of the watchmakers, you say, okay, I get it, and that becomes the highlight of the watch, not the secondary risk of, oh my God, it's a handled watch and I have to keep rewinding all day, or maybe I'll see my ugly hairy hand. No, that's not a part of it. The watch itself talks to you in some other way and makes you realize, yeah, of course. I mean, there's a reason behind all those executions, all those ideas. And that being said, this watch being part of the legacy of the histories of the heritage of the Jiu Valley in Switzerland, it adds to the story, and that's why it's a watch for me. Like all my watches, it's a watch for me. I like to tell the stories about this watch, and I really hope people would give skeletonized watches more of a fighting chance, because they deserve it.
Let me ask you a question that this conversation has kind of ignited in my mind. Are you a movement man or a kind of case and dial man? And I don't know. I mean, coming from, again, as I've said, coming from the point of view of Rolex and Tudor, it really is. And perhaps some people would disagree with me, but from my point of view, it's about the case. It's about the dial variations. It's about the kind of out. It's like if you're thinking of cars, it's about the bodywork and the finish of the interior. But there is also another. So that's kind of where I come from, I think. Then there's the other school of thought around movement people. And of course, people can be both, but then there's people who are hardcore into the movements, into the calibers. Honestly, so if we've got kind of calibers on this end of the scale and cases and kind of aesthetics or external aesthetics on this end, where do you sit on that scale, Israel?
I'm much closer to your right hand, my friend. I'm more like a case and dial person.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I won't say that, this is something I've been writing or trying to write a bit, some editorials and some stories. I try to put it into perspective. Maybe we're too, not confused, but very too overwhelmed with the idea of manufactured movements. Manufacture this and this brand has it's all good and fine. I don't mind at all. But I mean, don't we all start liking watches because of the way they look at first? So I don't mind if you're talking about a Longines or a Hamilton or a Norris, who may or may not have an ordinary run-of-the-mill movement, but you fall in love with a watch because of what it means to you, what you feel, what you see about it. So in that regard, I mean, I'm more like a part of the aesthetics kind of guy. I appreciate good-looking moments. I appreciate engineering of the moments, but maybe the Club Milan made me look at them in a different way, being like, okay, I keep realizing how the watch works. I keep understanding that the intricacies of watchmaking. It's a watchmaking school for Florista, I insist on that. But at the end of the day, just like the Speedmaster, we started our conversation a few minutes ago, I didn't mind about the caliber 861 of my Speedmaster. I wanted to feel, to enjoy, to own a watch with that specific look. So I think most of all, we're trying to go towards the right side of your equation. This comparison stick you just shown to us. We need to think about watch as an integral thing, as a wholesome thing. But I mean, aesthetic is the start of maybe the end of it all. So yeah, I'm much more like a case and dial kind of guy.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that answer. So, on to the next. We're plowing through these. Watch number 4.
This is the quirky one. This is one that makes me happy because you know it's a Russian watch, and people might say, "Why the hell did you buy a Russian watch?" Because I liked it. End of story. So this was the first watch I purchased online. I have to say that. I purchased it new, you know, the drill. You buy it through internet, you are in the travel, in a trip in the United States, you have to send it to a hotel, blah, blah, blah. But I always wanted a Russian watch. Not because I knew Russian watches or I was an expert in Russian watches, because why not? I want to see how does a Russian watch feel and look like. And I like to have a watch with the Cyrillic lettering and all that. And I got my hands in these pretty, I would say pretty cool Sturmansky, which means navigator in Russian. I had to learn that in time.
What does it mean in Russian, sorry?
Navigator.
Navigator, right, okay, cool.
Right. So that's why you see you'll see in the photo right in a couple of minutes. You know, the 2 register dial, very nice contrast with this very interesting, if not impressive, very interesting silvery dial, which is quite unusual. You know, this very specific logo above the 6 o'clock date. I mean, there are a few details here and there of these watches say, wow, it really looks nice and looks very, very formal, very martial, very Russian indeed. And you add to that the Cyrillic lettering, and you see, okay, it's quite nice. Now, yes, it's a chronograph, but chronograph from where? Well, this has I won't say famous, but recognized Poljot 3133, one of the last iterations. You know, the watch has been with us like forever. The 3133 was a caliber that was quite sturdy and made for these watches, and pretty much all watches made all chronographs made in Russia, first by Poljot, then by Bolmax and all the companies and enterprises that took care of the watchmaking business in Russia, made use of the 3133. Now, this movement has its origins in the early 70s. The story goes that Baijiu sold some machinery that they weren't using anymore because of the quartz crisis and because they were developing something else. And this machinery was used to build the Baijiu 7734, if I'm not mistaken. A chronograph caliber, sturdy one, you know, maybe like a predecessor of the 7750, I'm not sure about that, but it was a lower end movement. So they sold the machinery. The Russians bought them and started making this watch. Most people think the 3133 is an exact copy of the 7734. It's not such. It's not the case. There are some differences, the thickness. They use more jewels in this one because they found it appropriate. And still, they wanted to add reliability to the watch. So all in all, I guess they were successful in their try. And this very specific model, it's from mid-2000s. I bought it in 2005 or 6. Maybe I can remember well. But it's a very nice watch. I mean, you have sapphire crystal, you have a transparent case back, no finishings at all. It looks like it's like a mid-80s Depeche Mode song made into a song. You know, very sturdy, very graphic looking. And hey, it keeps really good time. This one's a limited edition of 999 pieces. Why? Who knows? It's just like that. And it was a very nice watch, and I'm very fond of it. And again, it's one of those watches I'll keep like forever. And I have to say, in these almost 15 years of using and wearing and owning a watch, I haven't done to it absolutely nothing, no service at all. I've opened it a couple of times just to see and take photographs and maybe play a bit with the bridges and pull off and put again on the balance wheel. But no service at all, and it keeps really good time. Now, that said, when you use a chronograph, from time to time when you push the start and stop pusher, it feels like it will disintegrate in your hand because it feels very, very rough. But I mean, you might hear it. No, not at all, not at all. From time to time, it like snaps loudly.
Oh,
But
really?
it's a fun watch. I mean, it's a fun watch. It's a watch you won't find here and there in a long, long time. And it tells you that stories like this what might make someone change their mind. I don't know at all if people like Konstantin Chaikin were influenced or not by Soviet and Russian watchmaking from years ago. But again, everything has story. Everything can be an inspiration. So I like to think that uh, this tries of Russian watchmaking to make the best watches for the people in those times. I mean, it can be a nice story and one that one can make of its own. In this case, yet another chronograph. Yeah, of course, we haven't seen pretty much all chronographs aside from the Club Milan because of the utility, utilitarian quality of a tool watch. But then again, you make their stories your own, and this one's part of a story that I made my own. And hell, you won't see a Russian watch here and there most of the time.
Let's do a screen share of this.
Yeah, people will probably see.
It's cool. So what's the insignia, the badge above the date?
Yeah, it's like the logo of Churmansky. It supposedly is like a reminder of the Russian space efforts in the 60s. I'm not sure if this has something to do with the Gagarin series that Polyo and Sturmansky developed. I'm pretty not sure about it. Okay. I would like to you if I say anything like that. But it kind of reminds you of a weird spaceship like with the insect shape. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. And it's got an internally rotating bezel, has it?
Exactly right. So you can play with a second time zone, if you will. And coming back to the logo, to that insignia, so we're looking. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's made out of metal. It's blue. It's polished. It's nice looking. I mean, they put some effort into it.
Yeah.
So that when you see contrasted with the silvery dial and the small registers and the luminescence of the numbers is not that great, but I mean that greenish look looks quite cool. I mean, and the detail. You see recent Sturmanskys, you will see the name of the watch in a straight line. This one's curved. So some details here and there that make you think they really put an effort into it. So we have to appreciate.
There's some thought gone into that. I particularly like the chrono hands, the shape of them, almost like little syringe hands, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly right. They're syringe-like, and again, they are faceted. It's not just just a simple baton. They're faceted. So there are 2 or 3 details that make you think, hey, like you say, they really thought about it when they put some effort on it, and it shows. Now, there are like a zillion different limited edition of these kind of watches, but that's not the point. I mean, this is an execution that's maybe one of the most attractive I've ever seen of these Russian watches. And I mean, it's a fun watch, the thing. It's quirky and fun, and that's the whole point of it.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get hungry on the island, and one of my favourite things to do is to dive down for some oysters. So I think you've also brought a dive watch with you as well for those excursions into the deep blue sea.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, it's here. I had it at the watch winder because, you have to keep it ready.
Yeah, we've got to be ready. We've got to be ready at a second's notice. Watch on, right. Straight in the briny.
When you kindly invited me to your offshore real estate, I was thinking, which would be, this has been probably part of all conversations you've ever had since you are running your island, but what would be the perfect watch if you get to be stranded in an island? I mean, you have a perfect example of what would be an ideal watch, because you have a chronograph and you have a watch that is water resistant. So those are the most important things. I'll add to it that you may need an automatic movements, so you can forget about winding the thing. So I don't have anything of like such, but I have a very trusty Seiko, which is it's pretty much at the other spectrum from my Sturmansky. The Sturmansky may look like something that will explode in your hand when you use it, but I mean a Seiko Prospect Diver, even though it's not a professional one, it's 200 meters and very nice and has a great luminescence, and it's automatic. So yeah, you need a watch. You want to wear it all the time. You need a watch that will take care of itself. So you have your Rolex. I was thinking about you have the possibility. You have remind myself that I need a proper tool watch if I were to be stranded on an island. I was thinking maybe a chronograph, maybe a Blancpain 55 ounce, or maybe a Ulysse Nardin diver, or some kind of Seamaster, or those kind of watches. Panerai, of course, that they have to be automatic, they have to be chronograph, and they have to be water resistant. That for me are the 3 key points for any watch. Again, I don't have any of those, but I'll take every day in the week and twice on Sundays, I'll be using a Seiko if I were to be stranded, like Chuck Nolan in the very loved film Castaway with Tom Hanks. So yeah, and he managed without a watch. You think about that. He managed to live 7 years in that island without a watch. So that kind of puts things into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't live 7 minutes without wearing a watch.
Right. I mean, you're wearing 2 watches at the same time. So, I mean, that's why we're all different, but alike at the same time, because we love.
Let's hear a picture of that Seiko. Again, really cool. They are just no nonsense, aren't they?
No, these so-called turtle Seikos, because of the shape of the case. Once again, the shape attracts you. The shape gets you to love it even more. And the coolest part of this one is that it has I won't call it Cyclops because it's not a Cyclops, and that's a very specific reference to Rolex, as you know. But to have this little look for the date, I mean, they didn't have to do it, but they did it. So that Seiko, man, that kind of details in this specific watch, because there are lots of prospects watches, lots of Seiko divers that they don't have this small loop. This one has it, and it's quite nice. No, it kind of adds some flair to the watch, and again, yet another talking point about a tool watch that is made to last like forever.
Yeah, I mean, you said that the Russian watch, you feel like it's going to explode in your hands sometimes. If you were wearing that Seiko, it'd survive any kind of explosion, wouldn't it?
No, it will indeed. And again, this is not like the most of the sturdiest watches, but these watches, man, they're made to last. It's amazing that there's so many references, so many designs, so many models. It's non-stop creativity from those guys in Japan. And I mean, Seiko deserves all the love we can give them because they are so great watches. And we Revolution really love our Seikos,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fabulous. What a great lineup of brilliant watches. Thank you so much. So we've been through all the watches. We've talked about our drinks at the beginning. Maybe if we've got a bit of downtime, there might be time to have a read. So I suggested that maybe you bring a book along. So what did you pack in terms of reading material?
Yeah, most of the times when I travel, I bring I'm a big Carl Sagan fan. So I love, I love Cosmos. I love Contact. I love, the romantic part of space from a very, very broad point of view, the beginning of it all. And more than talking you and bore you to death about space and space stuff and galaxies, and it's about like, about the details, the very basic ingredients of life. And that goes beyond the matter itself. It's about the feelings and the reactions and the way we behave with each other. And I was thinking, given that our world is going to hell pretty fast in these days, I was thinking about just one of the quotes I have underlined in one of the editions of Cosmos I have. And I'll come back with why I love Cosmos in a second. There's this very nice quote that goes something like, to make the world more significant, we have to think about the course of our questions and the depth of our answers. And now we have to start making very brave questions, and we have to face them with very deep answers, because that's the only way we can get away from all stuff. And maybe in time, we can start thinking about improving our world and ourselves. So Cosmos has lots of things like that. And the funny part is, I got to know Cosmos in the late 70s, early 80s, from the TV show, this from the public broadcasting station in the United States. It was, the public television. They started broadcasting Cosmos there. Of course, it arrived some years later in Mexico with a dubbed version, and not because it had to happen like that. Well, the messages, the music from Vangelis they use, the special effects and the way they tell you stories about life, about evolution, it really moved me in a way that years passed by. I had a chance to buy the DVDs, and they started buying 2 or 3 versions of the book. The pocket one, I wanted a big hardcover one that was very hard to get. But it's a nice, reminder of who we are, and what we have to do to really survive amongst ourselves, and by being kind with each other. So that's a book that, for me, it's a reference of all things life related.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. To be honest, talking earlier about diving down for the oysters has given me a bit of an appetite. So let's put your watches in the bag, strap on the Seiko. Maybe we can head out now into the water and get us some dinner.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why not? There's always a good time to have a good bite, because there's not bad time for it. And if you are studying in Ireland, I mean,
yeah,
what else can you do besides reading and
we can read, have a drink, and eat some oysters, and maybe I'll try on a couple of those watches.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anytime, it.
Great. Well, thanks for calling in and coming to see me here. It's always great to catch up with you, and thank you so much. And what a great selection of watches, and I'll look forward to seeing you around soon.
Hopefully, Russ. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being part of my sharing of the stories. For me, it's important to keep sharing, not comparing, but sharing information, our passion, that's what makes us feel alive. I mean, it's not about comparing things, it's about sharing our love of things. So each and every chance I have to do it with people like yourself, I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for having me. And likewise, I hope to see each other soon-ish. I don't know when, but we'll find the time and we'll find the chat, my friend.
Definitely. Take care. Thank you.
Take care, Ross. Thanks.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.